When tech mogul Ryan Blackwood's cutting-edge delivery drone malfunctioned over downtown Phoenix, it carried more than just a package. It held his most vulnerable confession, written for someone he'd lost forever. But fate had other plans. The letter landed in the hands of Maya Rodriguez, a struggling single mother working 3 jobs to keep her family afloat. What began as a simple case of wrong delivery would shatter the walls both had built around their hearts and prove that sometimes the most advanced technology delivers exactly what we need, not what we intended. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The glass towers of Blackwood Industries pierce the Arizona sky like crystal daggers, their reflective surfaces catching the harsh desert sun. On the 52nd floor, Ryan Blackwood stood motionless at his floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city sprawl endlessly below. At 34, he commanded a tech empire worth $12 billion, his revolutionary drone delivery systems transforming commerce across 3 continents. Yet the view that should have filled him with pride felt more like looking down from a prison cell. His office occupied an entire corner of the building, a monument to minimalist design where every surface gleamed with cold perfection. The only warmth came from a single photograph on his titanium desk, a young woman with laughing eyes and Ryan's same determined jawline, Sarah, his twin sister, who had died in a car accident 3 years ago while rushing to meet him for dinner. The dinner he'd postponed twice that week for board meetings. Ryan's fingers traced the edge of the frame, a ritual that had become as automatic as breathing. Sarah had been the only person who could make him laugh, who reminded him there was life beyond quarterly reports and market dominance. She'd worked as a pediatric nurse at Phoenix Children's Hospital, spending her days caring for sick kids while he built machines to replace human connection. The irony wasn't lost on him. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, his company's head psychiatrist, and the closest thing he had to a friend, stood in the doorway. Her presence was part of their weekly ritual, mandated by the board after Ryan's complete emotional shutdown following Sarah's death. "Still talking to the photographer instead of actual people?" Jennifer asked, settling into the chair across from his desk without invitation. Ryan returned to his seat, his movements precise and controlled. "The photograph doesn't argue with my business decisions or question my quarterly projections. It also doesn't challenge you to grow or remind you that you're human." Jennifer pulled out her tablet, her expression softening. "The board is concerned about the Phoenix facility expansion. They think you're using work to avoid processing Sarah's death." Quote, "The Phoenix facility will employ 800 people and generate $2 billion in revenue over 5 years, Ryan replied, his voice as flat as a financial report. "My processing is irrelevant to its success." Jennifer leaned forward, her dark eyes studying his face. "When's the last time you left this building for something that wasn't work-related?" Ryan considered the question with the same analytical precision he applied to everything else. "I attended the Arizona Science Museum Gala 6 weeks ago. Mindwell Technology donated robotic surgery equipment." "That was work, Ryan. When did you last do something purely for joy? When did you last feel anything?" The question hung in the air like desert heat. Ryan's empire had been built on the premise that human emotion was inefficient, that technology could eliminate the variables that made people unreliable. His drones delivered packages with mathematical precision. His algorithms predicted consumer behavior with 97% accuracy, and his automated systems ran with clockwork efficiency. But sitting across from Jennifer, he couldn't calculate an answer to her simple question. "Feeling things didn't save Sarah," he said finally. "If I'd been thinking logically instead of emotionally, I would have insisted on that dinner. I would have picked her up myself instead of letting her drive in the rain." "Or you both might have been in that car," Jennifer countered gently. "Survivor's guilt is normal, but you've turned it into a prison. Sarah wouldn't want this for you." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Sarah wanted a lot of things. She wanted me to find someone special, settle down, give her nieces and nephews to spoil. She wanted me to remember that success means nothing without people to share it with." His voice cracked, almost imperceptibly. She was wrong about that, too. Jennifer made a note on her tablet. "Have you considered that maybe she wasn't wrong? Maybe you've just convinced yourself she was, because it's easier than risking more loss?" Before Ryan could respond, his assistant Marcus Chen appeared in the doorway, his usually composed demeanor showing cracks of urgency. Mr. Blackwood, we have a situation with the prototype delivery system. Ryan straightened, grateful for the distraction. What kind of situation? Drone Beta 7 experienced a navigation malfunction during the test run to your penthouse. It deviated from its programmed route over the Roosevelt district. Marcus consulted his tablet nervously. Sir, it was carrying the package you prepared for the Memorial Garden delivery. The blood drained from Ryan's face. Once a month, he had a drone deliver white roses to the small memorial garden he'd built for Sarah at the Children's Hospital. Today marked 3 years since her death, and he'd included something extra in the package, a letter he'd written to her, pouring out 3 years of guilt, regret, and words he'd never been able to say while she was alive. It was meant to be placed at her memorial stone, a private moment between siblings separated by death. Where did it land? Ryan's voice was deadly quiet. Marcus swallowed hard. GPS shows it came down in the Roosevelt district, near the community center. We're tracking the signal now, but... He hesitated. Sir, the package was damaged on impact. The contents may have been scattered. Ryan was already moving toward the door, his usual controlled demeanor cracking. Get me a car, now. Ryan, wait, Jennifer called after him. Maybe this is an opportunity. To have my private thoughts scattered across a public street? Ryan's voice echoed off the glass walls. To have strangers read words meant for my dead sister? This isn't therapy, Jennifer. This is a disaster. As the elevator descended toward the parking garage, Ryan's mind raced through worst-case scenarios. The letter contained his most vulnerable confessions, his crushing loneliness, his guilt over Sarah's death, his fear that he'd become the emotionless machine everyone believed him to be. In the wrong hands, it could destroy his carefully constructed image, provide ammunition for business rivals, or worse, become tabloid fodder. But beneath his panic lay something else, something he refused to acknowledge even to himself. For 3 years he'd carried those words like stones in his chest. Writing them down, even for Sarah's memorial, had felt like the first real breath he'd taken since her funeral. The thought of a stranger reading them, of someone else seeing the man behind the billionaire facade, terrified him in ways that hostile takeovers and board rebellions never could. The sleek black Tesla emerged from the building's underground garage, its autopilot system navigating toward the Roosevelt district with the same precision that governed every aspect of Ryan's life. But as the gleaming towers of downtown gave way to modest neighborhoods and community gardens, he found himself entering a world his technology served, but he'd never truly seen. The Roosevelt district stretched before him like a different planet. Small houses with gardens instead of glass, children playing in yards instead of conference rooms, families gathered on porches instead of isolated penthouses. It was everything his sterile world wasn't. Chaotic, unpredictable, alive with the messy complexity of human connection. Somewhere in this neighborhood, his most private thoughts lay scattered like autumn leaves, waiting for unknown hands to gather them up. And for the first time in 3 years, Ryan Blackwood felt something other than numbness. He felt afraid. Maya Rodriguez balanced her 7-year-old daughter Isabella on her hip while fumbling for her keys outside the Roosevelt Community Center. Her second job of the day, teaching ESL classes to immigrant families, had run late when Mrs. Gutierrez struggled with past tense verbs. Maya didn't mind. The extra 30 minutes meant an additional $15, enough to buy Isabella the art supplies she'd been asking for. "Mommy, can we get ice cream?" Isabella asked, her dark eyes hopeful despite the Arizona heat that made the asphalt shimmer like water. "Tomorrow is payday, Mija," Maya replied, finally locating her keys buried beneath graded homework papers and unpaid bills. "How about we make ice cream at home with the bananas?" Isabella's face lit up. At 7, she possessed an optimism that Maya both envied and fiercely protected. Despite their cramped studio apartment, despite eating rice and beans 4 nights a week, despite Maya working from 6 in the morning until 10 at night, Isabella still believed in magic and possibility. The community center's parking lot stretched before them, mostly empty except for a few beat-up cars, and Maya's 15-year-old Honda Civic with its cracked windshield and temperamental air conditioning. She was calculating whether she had time to stop at the discount grocery store before her evening shift at the diner when something extraordinary caught her eye. A sleek drone, unlike anything she'd ever seen, sat motionless near the center's entrance. Its design was elegant, almost alien, brushed silver with blue LED lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Scattered around it were white roses and what appeared to be papers fluttering in the desert breeze. "Mommy, what's that?" Isabella whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Maya approached cautiously. She'd seen delivery drones before, simple, utilitarian machines that dropped packages at wealthy neighborhoods across town. But this was different. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Looked like something from a science fiction movie, its surface reflecting the late afternoon sun like liquid mercury. The roses were fresh, still fragrant despite the heat, but it was the papers that drew her attention. Elegant cream-colored stationery, the kind she'd only seen in fancy stores she couldn't afford to enter, was scattered across the hot asphalt. One sheet had lodged against her car's front tire. Maya glanced around the empty parking lot. No one was coming to claim the drone or its contents. She set Isabella down carefully. "Stay right here, baby. Don't touch anything." She picked up the sheet by her tire, her eyes scanning the handwritten words. The handwriting was precise yet somehow desperate, each letter formed with the care of someone choosing their words deliberately. "Sarah, I know you can't hear me, but I need to say this somewhere other than my own head. 3 years. And I still reach for my phone to call you when something good happens. 3 years. And I still save up stories to tell you, forgetting for just a moment that you're not coming back. I've become everything you worried I'd become. Successful, wealthy, and completely alone. The company thrives while I wither. I process data better than emotions, manage systems better than relationships. You always said my greatest innovation would be learning to let people in. I failed at that too." Maya's breath caught. This wasn't a business letter or a casual note. This was raw, private, meant for someone who couldn't read it. Her instinct was to stop reading, to respect this stranger's privacy. But something in the words resonated deep in her chest. The loneliness, the guilt, the feeling of failing someone you loved. These were territories she knew intimately. Isabella tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, what does it say?" "It's someone's letter, baby. Someone very sad who misses someone they love." Maya looked at the other scattered papers. She should call the police. Report the crashed drone. But as she read fragments of other sheets, words about isolation, about building walls to keep pain out, about wondering if genuine connection was possible, she felt an unexpected kinship with this unknown writer. Her phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor at the diner, "Can you come in early?" were slammed. Maya checked the time. She had exactly 37 minutes to get Isabella home to Mrs. Vasquez, their elderly neighbor who watched her in the evenings, change into her uniform, and drive across town to start her third job of the day. She couldn't afford to be late again. But as she gathered the scattered papers, carefully folding each one to protect them from the wind, she found herself wanting to know more about this person. Who was Sarah? Why was someone delivering letters to a dead person with a $12 million drone? And why did their words about loneliness echo her own midnight thoughts when Isabella slept and the silence felt too heavy to bear? The last sheet she collected was different from the others. Instead of grief and regret, it contained something else. "I know you'd tell me that isolation isn't protection, it's just another kind of death. You'd say that the heart I've locked away wasn't meant to be preserved like a museum piece, but used, risked, broken, and healed and broken again. You'd remind me that every person who ever mattered to us was worth the pain of losing them. Maybe you'd be right. Maybe there's someone out there who could see past the headlines and stock prices to whatever's left of the man you raised me to be. But I'm afraid I've forgotten how to be vulnerable, how to trust, how to believe that love exists for someone like me." Maya read the passage twice, her heart aching for this stranger's pain. She knew about loving someone and losing them. Her ex-husband had left when Isabella was 3, claiming that poverty and responsibility weren't what he'd signed up for. She knew about building walls, about believing that independence was safer than hope. As she carefully placed all the papers in her purse, a wild idea began forming. This person, this successful, isolated soul, had accidentally shared their deepest thoughts with a stranger. The drone malfunction had created an impossible connection between two worlds that never should have intersected. That evening, after Isabella was asleep and Maya's feet ached from 8 hours of serving coffee and cleaning tables, she sat at their small kitchen table with the mysterious letters spread before her. The words painted a picture of someone trapped by their own success, someone who'd chosen safety over connection and was slowly dying from the choice. Maya opened her laptop, a second-hand machine Isabella used for school, and began to type. To whoever wrote these letters, I don't know how your message found me, but it did. Your drone crashed outside the community center where I work, and your letters scattered like seeds in the wind. I probably shouldn't have read them, but I couldn't stop myself. Your words about loneliness, about building walls to protect yourself, they could have been written by me. I don't know who Sarah was, but I know she loved you. I can tell from the way you write to her, the way you still need her guidance even though she's gone. I lost someone important too, though different from your loss. My husband left when our daughter was 3. And I've been afraid to trust anyone since then. You wrote about wondering if genuine connection is possible for someone like you. I wonder the same thing about someone like me. A single mother working 3 jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, too tired most days to believe in anything beyond survival. Maybe I'm crazy for writing this. Maybe you'll never see it or want nothing to do with a stranger who accidentally reads your private thoughts. But your words made me feel less alone tonight. And I thought you should know that someone heard you. Someone understands. If you want to write back, you can reach me at this email address. If not, I hope you find the courage Sarah would want you to have. Maya. She typed her email address with trembling fingers, then hit send before she could change her mind. Outside their small window, the city sparkled with lights from towers that seemed to touch the stars. Somewhere in one of those towers, a billionaire sat alone with his grief. And somewhere in a modest apartment that smelled like rice and dreams, a single mother waited to see if kindness could bridge the gap between 2 impossibly different worlds. The digital message traveled through servers and fiber optic cables, carrying hope across the vast distance between wealth and want, between isolation and connection, between 2 hearts that had forgotten how to trust, but were about to remember why they should try. 2 years after a malfunctioning drone changed everything, Ryan Blackwood stood in the garden behind their new home in the Roosevelt district, watching Maya tend to the vegetable patch they'd planted together. The house was modest by his former standards, a renovated 1920s bungalow with creaky floors and windows that actually opened, but it felt more like home than his glass tower ever had. Isabella, now 9, sat cross-legged beside him, carefully assembling a small drone from a kit he designed specifically for children. Her concentration reminded him of Maya, that same furrow between her eyebrows when she focused, the same gentle determination that had first drawn him in through her letters. Mr. Ryan, why did you make the propellers different colors? Isabella asked, holding up the rainbow-hued pieces. So kids can see how each one moves individually, Ryan explained, kneeling beside her, and because your mom told me once that the world needs more color, not less. Maya looked up from her tomato plants, dirt streaking her cheek, and smiled the smile that still made his breath catch. She wore one of his old MIT t-shirts over gardening jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and he thought she'd never looked more beautiful. The transformation hadn't been easy. Those first months after going public with their relationship had tested every foundation they'd built through letters and late-night conversations. Ryan, stepping back from daily operations at Blackwood Industries to focus on humanitarian technology projects, had sent shockwaves through the business world. Stock prices fluctuated, board members questioned his judgment, and media outlets dissected every aspect of their unlikely romance. But they'd weathered it together. Maya had returned to school, earning her master's degree in education, while Ryan used his resources to establish scholarship programs for single parents. She now ran the Blackwood Foundation's educational initiatives, her insights from years of struggle informing every program they created. Dinner's almost ready, Maya called, wiping her hands on a towel. Isabella, wash up. Ryan, can you check on the bread? The domestic routine still amazed him. 2 years ago, his meals had been catered affairs, eaten alone in sterile silence. Now he found joy in chopping vegetables while Maya stirred soup, listening to Isabella practice violin in the living room, arguing playfully about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. As they gathered around the kitchen table, a weathered oak piece Maya had found at a thrift store and he'd helped refinish, Ryan felt the familiar contentment that came from being truly seen and accepted. Isabella chatted about her art class, Maya shared updates from the community center where she still volunteered, and Ryan found himself contributing stories from the foundation rather than corporate conquests. "Mr. Ryan," Isabella said suddenly, her dark eyes serious in the way that always preceded her most profound observations, "are you still sad about your sister?" Maya tensed slightly, but Ryan had learned to welcome these moments rather than deflect them. "Sometimes I am, sweetheart. But talking about Sarah with you and your mom helps me remember the good parts, instead of just missing her." "I think she would like us," Isabella declared with 9-year-old certainty. "Especially Mammy, because Mammy takes care of people like Sarah did." Ryan's throat tightened. "You know what? I think you're absolutely right." After Isabella went to bed, Ryan and Maya sat on their front porch swing, sharing a bottle of wine and watching their neighbors' lives unfold in lit windows. The Gutierrez family was having a birthday party next door, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Across the street, old Mr. Martinez was teaching his grandson to change a tire by porch light. "Do you ever miss it?" Maya asked quietly, her head resting on his shoulder. "The penthouse, the power, the simplicity of only having to worry about profit margins." Ryan considered the question seriously. "I miss the certainty sometimes. Business problems have clear solutions, increase efficiency, cut costs, expand markets. Human problems are messier. But more rewarding when you solve them," Maya added. "When we solve them," he corrected, squeezing her hand. "I couldn't do any of this without you. The foundation, this life, remembering how to be human. You taught me all of it." Maya smiled, but he caught the flicker of something else in her expression. "What is it?" She was quiet for a moment, then pulled a letter from her pocket. Not an email printout or a text message, but an actual handwritten letter on familiar cream-colored stationery. "I've been working on something," she said, unfolding the paper. "A response to your very first letter, the one that started everything. I know Sarah can't read it, but I thought maybe it was time to close that circle." Ryan's heart stuttered as Maya began to read. "Dear Sarah, I never met you, but I feel like I know you through your brother's words and the man you helped shape. 2 years ago, your letter meant for you found its way to me instead, and it changed both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. I want you to know that Ryan isn't lost anymore. He still misses you terribly, but he's learned to carry that love forward instead of letting it trap him in the past. He laughs now. Really laughs, not the polite sounds he used to make in board meetings. He builds things that matter, not just things that sell. And he loves deeply, completely, without reservation. You worried he would become successful but empty. Instead, he's learned that true success means being brave enough to be vulnerable, smart enough to accept help, and strong enough to use his gifts in service of others. The Ryan I fell in love with through accidental letters is the Ryan who exists because you loved him first. I promise to keep reminding him that walls are for protection, not imprisonment. I promise to challenge him when he tries to hide behind logic instead of feeling. And I promise to love him the way you taught him he deserved to be loved. Completely, without conditions, with all the messy beauty that comes with opening your heart. Thank you for raising a man who could see past our different worlds to find our common ground. Thank you for the courage he inherited from you, even when he thought he'd lost it. And thank you for the accident that brought us together, because I choose to believe you had something to do with that broken drone finding its way to me. Your brother is home now, Sarah. He's exactly where he belongs. With love and gratitude, Maya." By the time she finished reading, tears were streaming down Ryan's face. He pulled Maya close, overwhelmed by the gift of her words, by the way she'd found healing for wounds he hadn't even known were still bleeding. "She would have loved you," he whispered against her hair. "She would have been so proud of who we've become together." They sat in comfortable silence, wrapped in each other's arms, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood settling into evening. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, foundation projects to manage, Isabella's school play to attend, the endless small negotiations of building a life together. But tonight, they were simply present in the moment they'd created through courage, honesty, and the willingness to believe that love could bridge any distance. Inside the house, Isabella's drone kit sat half-assembled on the coffee table, waiting for tomorrow's lesson. In a few years, she'd be old enough to understand the full story of how a malfunctioning drone had brought her new family together. She'd learned that sometimes the most important messages aren't the ones we intend to send, but the ones that find their way to exactly the right person at exactly the right time. And somewhere in the desert wind that rustled through their garden, carrying the scent of growing things and the sound of laughter from neighboring houses, it felt like Sarah was finally at peace, knowing her brother had learned the most important lesson of all, that the heart isn't meant to be preserved like a museum piece, but used, risked, and shared with those brave enough to accept both its beauty and its brokenness. The future stretched before them, uncertain but no longer lonely, built on a foundation of words that had bridged the impossible distance between two worlds and proven that love, like the best technology, works best when it connects us to each other. 3 months later, Ryan found himself standing before a crowd of 500 at the Phoenix Convention Center, delivering the keynote address for the National Single Parent Support Summit. The event was Maya's brainchild, born from her own experiences and their shared recognition that millions of families struggled in silence, invisible to a society that measured worth by traditional metrics. 2.5 years ago, Ryan began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment, I believed that efficiency was everything. That human unpredictability was a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be celebrated. I ran a company that connected millions of devices but couldn't connect to a single human being. In the front row, Maya sat with Isabella, both wearing matching foundation t-shirts. Isabella had insisted on coming, declaring herself part of the team now that she understood their work helped families like theirs. Her presence grounded him, reminded him why this mattered beyond statistics and success metrics. Then a technology designed to eliminate human error created the most beautiful error of my life. A malfunctioning drone delivered my most private thoughts to a stranger who became my family. Maya Rodriguez didn't just read my words. She responded with courage I didn't know existed. The audience leaned forward as Ryan shared their story, not as a fairy tale, but as proof that connection could transcend circumstances. He spoke about Maya's 3 jobs, Isabella's resilience, their community that had embraced him despite his wealth. He talked about learning to see abundance, not in bank accounts, but in daily moments of grace. The Blackwood Foundation exists because Maya taught me that every single parent working 3 jobs deserves more than survival. They deserve opportunity, support, and recognition for the heroic work they do every day. His voice strengthened with conviction. Today, we're announcing our largest initiative yet, Operation Lift Up, a comprehensive program providing childcare, education funding, career development, and emergency support for single-parent families across all 50 states. The applause was thunderous, but Ryan's attention focused on Maya's face, radiant with pride and purpose. She'd spend the next 2 hours on stage herself, leading workshops on advocacy and empowerment, sharing strategies born from her own journey, from desperation to hope. That evening, after the conference ended and they'd returned home, Ryan discovered Maya in their study, surrounded by thank you letters from families the foundation had already helped. A young mother in Detroit whose engineering degree was now possible thanks to their scholarship program. A father in rural Montana whose startup received funding after traditional banks refused his loan applications. A grandmother in Florida raising 3 grandchildren who finally had access to quality after-school care. Look at this one, Maya said, handing him a crayon-drawn picture from a 6-year-old whose mom had gone back to school. She drew our whole family, even the dog we don't have yet. Ryan studied the colorful drawing, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, with a small drone floating overhead like a benevolent guardian angel. Should we get a dog? Isabella's been dropping hints for months, Maya laughed. But first, we need to talk about something else. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small wrapped box, her expression mixing nervousness with excitement. I know we already had our wedding, but there's something I wanted to give you. Call it an anniversary present, even though it's only been 8 months. Inside the box lay a simple silver chain holding 2 pendants, a small replica of the drone that had brought them together, and a tiny charm shaped like an envelope. On the back of the envelope, Maya had inscribed the date of her first email response to his scattered letter. So you never forget how this started, she said softly. How a broken machine delivered exactly what we both needed. Ryan clasped the chain around his neck, the metal warm against his skin. I have something for you too. Well, something for all of us, actually. He led her to the kitchen window that overlooked their backyard. In the months since they'd moved in, they'd transformed the space from desert hardpan into a thriving garden. Maya's vegetables grew alongside Isabella's sunflowers, while fruit trees Ryan had planted offered shade for outdoor dinners. But tonight, something new sat in the center of it all. A small gazebo strung with solar lights, its posts carved with words from their earliest letters. "When did you—" Maya began, then noticed Isabella peeking around the corner, barely containing her excitement. "Isabella helped me design it," Ryan admitted. "She said every princess needs a castle, but practical princesses need gazebos for reading and homework and late-night conversations." They walked outside together, Isabella skipping ahead to flip the switch that illuminated the carved words. Phrases from their correspondence glowed softly in the evening light. Courage to be vulnerable. Strength found in connection. Love bridges all distances. Home is wherever you are. "There's one more thing," Ryan said, his voice holding the same nervousness Maya's had earlier. From beneath the gazebo's built-in bench, he retrieved a leather portfolio. "I've been working on this for months. It's not a business plan or a foundation report. It's our story, written down properly, from start to finish." Maya opened the portfolio to find pages of carefully crafted prose, their entire journey documented from that first scattered letter to this moment in their garden. But these weren't just the facts. Ryan had captured the emotions, the fears, the small victories and daily discoveries that had transformed them both. "I want to publish it," he said quietly. "Not for money or publicity, but because somewhere out there, another person is sitting alone in a glass tower or working 3 jobs while dreaming of connection. Maybe our story could be their accidental letter." Isabella, who had been examining the gazebo carvings with intense focus, suddenly looked up. "Does this mean people will know how you and Mammy met? And they'll know about the magic drone?" "They'll know about love finding a way," Maya confirmed, pulling her daughter close, "and about how families come together in the most unexpected ways." As the 3 of them sat in their new gazebo, surrounded by the garden they'd grown together, Ryan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The man who had once measured success in stock prices now counted wealth in moments like these. Isabella's laughter echoing off their neighbors' houses, Maya's hand intertwined with his, the knowledge that their love story was inspiring programs that helped thousands of families across the country. His phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Jennifer Walsh, his former therapist who had become a friend. "Saw the conference coverage. Sarah would be so proud of who you've become." Ryan typed back, "We all would be proud. This is what healing looks like." Above them, the Arizona sky blazed with stars unpolluted by the city lights visible from their old worlds. In the distance, a commercial drone hummed past, delivering someone's late dinner order with mechanical precision. But here in their garden sanctuary, under lights powered by the desert sun and surrounded by growing things, they had created something no algorithm could calculate. A love that multiplied instead of divided, that lifted instead of isolated, that proved the most sophisticated technology in the universe was still the human heart willing to trust, to risk, and to believe in second chances. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families to help, new ways to honor the accident that had changed everything. But tonight was perfect in its imperfection, rich in its simplicity, complete in the knowledge that sometimes the most important deliveries aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that find us exactly when we need them most. 6 weeks later, Ryan stood in the doorway of Isabella's bedroom, watching Maya braid their daughter's hair for the school talent show. Isabella had chosen to perform a spoken word piece she'd written about families that find each other, and her nervous energy filled the room like electricity. "What if I forget the words?" Isabella worried, fidgeting with the hem of her dress. "Then you speak from your heart," Maya replied, securing the braid with a ribbon that matched Isabella's eyes. "The best stories aren't memorized, they're felt." Ryan thought about those words as they drove to the elementary school, Isabella chattering about her classmates' acts while Maya reviewed her own notes. Tonight wasn't just about a talent show. Maya had been invited to speak to the Parent-Teacher Association about the Foundation's new educational partnership program. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified to address a room of adults. Now she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew her worth wasn't measured by her bank account, but by her impact. The school auditorium buzzed with families settling into folding chairs, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of homemade brownies from the fundraising table. Ryan recognized several faces from their neighborhood. Mrs. Chen from the corner market, the Martinez family who'd welcomed them with tamales when they first moved in, single mothers Maya had connected with through community programs. When Isabella took the stage, her voice initially wavered but grew stronger with each line. Some families start with love at first sight. Some families start with accidents and surprises. My family started with a flying robot that got lost and found exactly where it needed to go. The audience chuckled, but Ryan felt tears welling as Isabella continued, describing how a sad man in a tall building had written letters to heaven that fell to earth instead, where a brave lady who worked harder than superheroes had answered them with kindness. Now my family teaches other families that being different isn't wrong, it's just another kind of right. And sometimes the best things happen when machines break and hearts don't. The applause was enthusiastic, but Ryan barely heard it over the sound of his own heart beating with pride. This 9-year-old girl, who had entered his life as part of a package deal he never knew he wanted, had just articulated their story, with more clarity than most adults achieved. During intermission, while Maya set up her presentation materials, Ryan found himself cornered by Principal Anderson, a no-nonsense woman who had initially been skeptical of the Foundation's partnership proposal. "Mr. Blackwood, I owe you an apology," she said, her voice carrying the weight of genuine conviction. "When you first approached us about funding arts programs and after-school support, I thought it was another wealthy philanthropist looking for a tax write-off and good publicity." "And now?" Ryan asked, genuinely curious about her change of perspective. "Now I see Maya tutoring struggling readers every Tuesday, you volunteering at our robotics club, Isabella treating every child like they're worth knowing regardless of their circumstances. You're not funding programs. You're becoming part of our community. That's rare." Maya's presentation began with statistics, dropout rates, literacy gaps, the correlation between economic stress and academic performance. But she quickly shifted to stories. The 6th grader whose confidence bloomed in a poetry workshop. The single father who learned coding alongside his son. The teenage mother who discovered her talent for engineering through their scholarship program. "Education isn't just about preparing children for careers," Maya concluded, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. "It's about preparing them for lives of meaning, connection, and contribution. Every child in this room has unlimited potential. Our job is to make sure they believe it too." After the presentations ended and the families began filtering out, Ryan helped Maya pack up her materials, while Isabella collected compliments from classmates and teachers. The evening had been a success by any measure, but what struck him most was how natural it all felt. This life of engagement, of showing up, of mattering to people who mattered to them. As they walked through the parking lot under a canopy of desert stars, Isabella skipped between them, still high on the excitement of performance. "Mr. Ryan, do you think your sister Sarah watched my show tonight?" The question caught him off guard, but not with the familiar stab of pain. Instead, he felt a warm certainty settling in his chest. "I think she was probably clapping the loudest, sweetheart. And I think she's happy we found each other." "Good," Isabella declared with 9-year-old finality, "because I wrote her a letter too. I put it in our mailbox for the mail drone to take to heaven." Maya caught Ryan's eye over Isabella's head, both of them touched by the child's matter-of-fact faith and love transcending distance and death. They had created something beautiful here. Not just a family, but a legacy of connection that would ripple forward through all the lives they touched. Back home, as they tucked Isabella into bed and listened to her recount every moment of her successful performance, Ryan realized this was what Sarah had always wanted for him. Not the penthouse, or the private jets, or the magazine covers, but this. The sacred ordinary of bedtime stories and school events. The daily choice to show up for people who needed him. The knowledge that his life created more joy than it consumed. The broken drone that had started it all sat on Isabella's bookshelf now, repaired and repurposed as a nightlight, its gentle blue glow. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful destinations are the ones we never planned to reach. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.